part of the pilgrimage, it's not just the locations you go to. That's a big focal point. But it's more so the journey you go on with other people and the shedding of your personality as you go on that journey, because a lot of our personality is wound up in our nationalistic identity, our cultural identity, all of these identities that overlay the pure essence that we are. But when you go on a pilgrimage with other people, and usually when you go on a pilgrimage, particularly our pilgrimages, is you're going with people from all over the world. So you might be very lucky to have someone from your own country to be on that journey, but it's not often the case. So you have to get good at navigating the terrain and opening yourself up to new experiences and opening yourself up to other people you've never met in your life. And this down-regulates your ego and your personality. For you and I, it's been a blessing for us, because even running the pilgrimages ourselves, you have to get skillful at navigating different personalities, different cultural tendencies, and so forth and so on. So while running the actual pilgrimage, which can be difficult, right? But that's why it's important, and that's what the ancients knew when they went on pilgrimage. Like the ancient yogis, for example, they never stayed in any place for longer than a few days, because they would pick up the vasanas, the habits and tendencies of that certain environment. So not everyone was a yogi back in the day, but people understood the yogi's psychology, because what older, let's say Indian and let's say Southeast Asia, South Asian mentality was you'd stay, you'd have your place, right, where you would live, but then there would be like a month or 2 months where you, possibly with a group of people you don't know or with your family, would go on this adventure together. Not technically a holiday. There weren't really holidays back then. The holidays in air quotes was you would go to, say if you lived in Madhya Pradesh, you would go to Uttar Pradesh to go to Varanasi, right? So you would make that pilgrimage on horse and cart. The journey unfolds as you go there, and it's this wild adventure that you go on together, but you can't bring your own environmental tendencies to that other location, because they don't work. Even in India, right, you see people from other states that are completely different from other states. They don't even speak the same language, right? So you can't bring your own cultural and environmental tendencies to those certain locations.
Yeah, I find that a lot of when Indians make their own trip to within India somewhere, for example, like you said, Uttar Pradesh, which the state where the Varanasi is, and also Uttarakhand, where the Kasa and these great yogis in the Himalayas used to live in the ancient times, since the ancient times and whatnot. And there's a beautiful thing about the Indian pilgrims who, like you said, it's not really a necessarily holiday idea, the concept that we have. It's more so they dedicate their time off to meet God, so to say. So what happens in between from their home to their destination is actually the secondary. Like, again, we've been to India for 2 decades now, and we've seen the changes through 2 decades, right? Sure. So from home to destination, so many variables it can happen, right? So many things can go wrong.
And will go wrong.
Yeah, you book the taxi never turn up, and you might miss the train and whatnot. Then you turn up the train station on time, train delay by 6 hours, and nothing goes right. No. But all these variables doesn't seem to affect them very much, right? Because they're the very reason why they're taking the trip is greater than the problem that they face throughout the journey, right? Course, yeah. So that's what's beautiful about. So I feel, again, like we see these Indian people, usually they in a large group, as in like these my grandparents, parents, myself, and the children, the cousins, and brothers, and blah blah blah. Like it just goes on.
A 50-seat bus and just coming down the road.
Taking whole, carriage of the train.
That's right. Yeah.
So they take on a trip with this large group of people, family, friends, and they really dedicate to this journey, right? So that's what's beautiful about. But as you mentioned earlier, when we take people to these special locations, is that often people, again, which is actually very understandable, the way people usually come from the Western nations. They think that I'm going to, let's say, Mahabodhi Temple. That's the destination. People often think that it'll work just like in their countries. For instance, from going from A to B like this.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But India, like I mentioned, it doesn't really work that. From
no.
A to B can be like long journey, like wiggly road here and there,
Yes.
and many, many problems, and then eventually you will get
A to
B.
D, A to D, and back to A, and then
And
B,
then
and back to A, and it never quite goes.
A to F to D,
Yeah,
and then eventually get
Yeah.
to B, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how it happens. So that people often, have this a lot of expectation, I think, and also they have their own kind of plan to go a certain way, but it doesn't really work like that. But in that process, what people often learn is that to be able to wait and be patient and actually be resilient with the process. And the learning that you are in a different country, you are experiencing different culture, which brings completely different way of thinking in the local people and the local environment. And that itself, as you mentioned beautifully, is that part of the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And it's not, I wish people don't actually misunderstand that taking a pilgrimage is just to go from A to B, just like taking like a sightseeing journey. It's not like that at all. Going from A to B, like I said about train delaying, taxi never turn up and this and that, it's all part of it. That also something that to teach us about not being patient. Need to wait, right?
Yeah.
And need to be resilient, need to stay calm. You can't be react erratically, right? And that sort of things. There's a lot to teach about yourself from facing those problems. And eventually, when you get to the destination, you appreciate much more, right? And because you've gone through all these experiences. And a lot of the cases, people, because they're not familiar with experiencing that sort of problems, they often get let down from the place, or it's not what I thought about things. And well, if that's not what you thought about, that the thinking itself is actually maybe not appropriate. You shouldn't have any sort of expectation, because we shouldn't have any expectation like when you go to a place where you've never been, right?
No,
Like you
of
just
course,
go
yeah.
with like a empty canvas, right? You just whatever life throws at me, I need to take it,
Yeah, of
right?
course,
And
yeah.
I need to bounce back from it, right? And
That's right.
again, that is part of taking a pilgrimage.
That's right. Yeah, it's not that, like you said, it's not the A to B. Like, and again, if you go on a pilgrimage, there should be, like you said, zero expectations, because the pilgrimage is, you're supposed to let go and let God, right? So you're letting, if we're using India as an example, you're letting Shiva guide the way, right? You're letting Shiva guide the way, and whatever happens on the pilgrimage happens. And we know from going on many pilgrimages and sharing many pilgrimages with other people, like I said earlier, that it's sometimes it's not the places you go, it's the simple things like sharing a tea on Pradakshina Road, right? We still talk to the people who would go on certain pilgrimages, and they say, that's so vivid in my mind. And being in the van together, we're all in the little bus together, and the conversations that flow and the things that you see. It's like the old days. It's the old chariot, right? You're in the chariot with the pilgrims, and you're going to a place. These are more of the vivid experiences. We had an experience with a group once in North India when we drove from Bodh Gaya to Varanasi, and the van's tyre blew out. And so we're sitting on the side of the road, but everyone that came on that tour, that's a rich experience for all of us, because we're completely in the middle of nowhere in rural India, and just sitting on the side of the road waiting for the driver to fix the tyre, which they couldn't fix the tyre because the spare was completely busted as well. So we're driving around in rural India looking for just a normal tire. But that's actually an inherent part of the pilgrimage. It's almost like the ultimate is testing you. How are you going to get through this? Are you going to be bothered by this? Okay, we're not going to get to Varanasi on time. And sadly, we got to Varanasi in peak hour, which is the worst time to arrive in Varanasi.
Well, we expected to take like 6 hours, but in the end, it took us 8 hours.
8 hours.
9 hours.
Yeah. It was insane, But that was all part of it. And no one that was on that journey has a bad experience of that, because that was an integral part of the journey. It was an unexpected part of the journey. Not everything goes smoothly at the best of times, right? Not even in like, say, first world countries, in air quotes, right? Not everything goes smoothly all the time. But that's what's important for the pilgrimage is it's often the simple things. It's the process. It's not so much the places you go, because if you have a lot of expectations, it was like you and I when we were younger and we went to the pyramids. We had a lot of expectations for the pyramids, and we were kind of a little bit, it is, it's obviously it's unbelievable.
I've seen it through the pictures.
Obviously, it's unbelievable to see, but it's kind of if you have too much expectations, you'll be naturally let down. But if you go on a pilgrimage with no expectations, zero expectations, but just the idea that you're going to experience this wonderful experience with other people, then all of these different things can open up along the journey, and you can make lifelong friends, right? And that's what we've fortunately, had the blessing throughout the years to create these lifelong friends, not just through sort of what I do and what we do through the podcast, but also through the pilgrimages as well.
Yes. It is great to connect online through this podcasts and obviously many videos on YouTube. Yeah, you continue to upload and whatnot. But the reason why we do these tours, pilgrimage tours, is to connect in most authentic way. Like you said, the people who get to join and the pilgrimage all come from different places, and they have no idea who they're going to get to meet, and they have no idea where they're going to get to have a first night and sleep and whatnot, and they just completely giving us all their trust to us, and we manage it. But again, like we are just kind of we are hosting these tours, but in the end, what's great about is that the people who join the tour makes it great, right? They come as strangers and live as a lifelong friends, right? Not only just the ordinary friendship; it's more like much deeper than that, right? Yeah. The time that we spend, like you said, having a tea on Production Road in the Tiruvannamalai, and just sharing like a life story, or just looking over the window when you're in the van, there's something spontaneous, the funny things happen, and they share these moments, right? Like, look at that, how funny is that, and like whatnot. So those moments is what creates the like a last long memories, and that's what it's all about. And in the end, the people, a lot of people leave tears in their eyes, right? Because they just don't want this to end, and neither do we, right?
No,
so that's what's great about. So at the beginning, we get to know each other, and get familiar with the environment and whatnot. But at the end, they feel like they're at home.
That's right. It is that feeling of being at home on the journey, because it's kind of, in some sense, it's kind of our natural state, right? Like we've kind of created a life for us for thousands of years where we settle in one place for too long. And a pilgrimage is kind of medicine for that type of rut or hypnosis, you could say, that, I need to be settled in one place and this and that. This is kind of a mantra we all sort of recite, and it gets stronger as you get older, because, you want to... But then you see the yogis, you see the sadhus and this and that still dedicated to their path, still moving, still going forward, and so forth, right? So it's very important, even for ourselves, like talking about our own personal pilgrimages, right? Like, so, for example, it was important for us to go to in the past to go to Bihar and sort of follow the footsteps of the Buddha, right? And you go to Rajgir, you go to, Varanasi, Patna, all these places. And along the journey, yeah, of course we went to great places, but some of the more memorable experiences were like the old lady and the old bloke who have the tea shop with the clay cup, so a lot of those experiences are really rich, right? Like on the journey, yeah, we were, of course, where the tea shop is situated, it's outside a Japanese monastery in Bihar, and yeah, it's beautiful, right? You're in the place, the location where the Buddha would go on his own personal spiritual retreat. So there's a high significance there, and it's not to discount that we didn't have great experiences meditating in the same cave the Buddha meditated in. Obviously, these are peak experiences, but it's also the people you meet who aren't part of, because on that pilgrimage it's just you and I, right? So we're traveling to places, staying for a while, meditating, this and that, but it's the locals that you meet, the connection from the heart that you have with people, because they don't know anything about you, you don't really know anything about them, but they know that you like tea, they like making tea, and sometimes a smile speaks 1,000 words, right? Whereas, unfortunately, in the modern day, because of the age of information, people find it hard to communicate with each other because they've got so many preconceived ideas and notions about the way life should be, right? Whereas sometimes when you're in a place like Bihar, for example, is in the 4 top poorest states in India, right? Usually it is the poorest state, but it kind of fluctuates, back and forth. But you really see the innocence in the heart of the people. And this is what's important, particularly if you're come from a developed country, right? Or you come from outside of India. These are the experiences you need to have, because it really instills then a faith in humanity. Often people can watch idiotic things online and stupid fake news that is saturated all over the world, right? And you can think that the world is a certain way. And I say, well, you can think that, but let me take you on a road trip through Bihar, and I'll show you what life is really about, right? Because they don't know anything about any of this stuff that you're talking about. You have probably more of you're indoctrinated with the place that you're from, and you over-exaggerate and you say that is the world. But let me take you to another place, and I'll show you that all of these things that you think about or that disturb you and give you a lack of faith in humanity don't mean jack in another place, right? And so this, again, is another important part of the pilgrimage. You're getting out of this conditioning you have, and the pilgrimage reinstills a faith in humanity.